Good morning, Knicks Nation. Today is Friday, the 6th day of June 2025. Happy Friday. Hope you're all safe and healthy today. Hope your family's safe and healthy, and that the needs of you and your family in terms of food, shelter, clothing, as well as health are being met today. Blessings upon those that work in the healthcare field, along with the first responders who every day are doing their best to save lives, those that pick up garbage, keep our places clean, and those that make deliveries for our convenience. Double blessings on the men and women that are out here trying to help rescue, deliver, and recover teenagers and children that are victims of child molestation and pedophilia. People that are victims of pornography, child pornography, prostitution, child prostitution, human trafficking, and sex slavery. Double curses upon the perpetrators, the profiteers, and the perverts that create the demand that caused these things to exist. Finally, double blessings on the homeless. More than 700,000 men, women, children, families, senior citizens, and military veterans homeless in the United States. Blessings upon them, for theirs is the kingdom. So, now that the Knicks are definitely in the market for a new head coach, we talked about some of the must-haves yesterday that the new head coach must bring to the table. Ball control, defense, offensive rebounding, things that must happen regardless of who the next head coach is. There are also now, officially, there's going to be a fundamental shift in the way the NBA plays. It happens many times in NBA history. Again, the teams that do the winning influence all other teams to copy them. And so in this case, what we are finding with the two finals teams, the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, is they both run 10-man rotations, 9 to 10, sometimes 11, depending on the situation. With respect to the Knicks or any other team, you're going to see a lot more teams, especially the playoff level teams, which the Knicks are, become expanded in their rotation. The goal, though, what I've learned, today we're going to be discussing Jalen Brunson and his usage, how the best utilize Jalen Brunson, how the new coach in the new system, because it's going to be a new coach with a different system, is going to best utilize Jalen Brunson. Looking at Jalen Brunson's numbers, and again, I was looking at basketballreference.com, Jalen Brunson from this past season. Jalen Brunson averaged this year, his average was 35 minutes per game. He averaged 35 minutes per game. And we can certainly guarantee he's not going to be averaging that under whoever the new coach is. He's not going to be averaging 35 minutes a game. And let me tell you one of the reasons. When Jalen Brunson played plus on the plus minus side, when Jalen Brunson was plus, in other words, when the Knicks were better, and it's not every game, but for 35 games, he either played even or plus, which means the Knicks were at least break even when he's on the floor or ahead by a certain number over the other team. That's the plus minus. When a player is on the floor, does his team have an advantage? That's what the plus minus shows. It's not always due to the player, but in this case it would be. So Jalen Brunson played 65 games this year. When he is plus on the plus minus, the Knicks were 33-2. When he is negative on the plus minus, the Knicks were 7-23. Okay, so they're 7 wins, 23 losses when he's negative. They're 33 wins, 2 losses when he's positive. When he plays more than 40 minutes, the Knicks were 4-6. When he plays less than 30, they won more games. I think the key here is not fatigue as much as it's, and this is going to be the key to me in the next head coach. You must use Jalen Brunson in an efficient manner. He must be used more efficiently. Now, yes, he will be fresher, but I think it's more strategy than it is anything else. Again, Tom Thibodeau, and again, I'm always going to be Tibbs Hive. I'm finding most of the complaints that I'm getting about Tom Thibodeau after the fact, which to me is cowardly to be coming after the fact with the BS about it. And again, I want to also stress to y'all, some of y'all just don't listen. And then you wonder why I react negatively to what you put on my channel. Do not come on my channel with gossip. I don't want to hear about somebody's pie in the sky trades or suggestions for trades or no, I don't want to hear about it. That's gossip. I'm not trying to gossip. Okay, what somebody apparently might have said, but it wasn't substantiated. I don't want to hear that. This is straight for the Knicks with the Knicks, not gossip. Okay, so yesterday somebody came on my channel with something supposedly Shams said, but in the whole discourse with Shams, this 3 words was in there. This wasn't substantiated or something to that effect. This was not confirmed. If somebody's telling you something, right, and the truth of it is not confirmed, that's gossip. Gossip is BS. I don't want BS. I don't want to see BS. I don't want to hear about it. It's irrelevant. It's a waste of mind energy. Okay? For Jalen Brunson, Tom Thibodeau was cut from the cloth of the Jeff Van Gundy, Pat Riley era. In that era, the belief was, and it was not just those guys, it was, the Boston Celtics with Larry Bird, it was the Lakers with Magic Johnson, it was the Knicks with Patrick Ewing, and it was, of course, the Bulls with Michael Jordan. What all of those teams had in common was that when you have it's like what somebody asked Paul Brown, used to be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns back in the 60s. And there were questions about how many times Jim Brown carried the ball, because he carried the ball a lot. And they asked him, why do you give Jim Brown the ball so much? Aren't you afraid of wearing him out? And Paul Brown said, when you got a big gun, you shoot it. And that was pretty much the mantra. That's the mantra Tiz was brought up in as a coach. That's where he cut his teeth. When you got a big gun, you shoot it. In other words, you ride your best player. You ride with them and you ride them. Okay? That's how he was brought up. And so I'm not going to criticize him for doing what he believes is the way to win. And that's the thing. He wants to win. He wanted to win. I don't think Tiz was treated fairly. But I'm not going to whine about him being dismissed, because I'm a Knicks fan. Much as I love Tibbs, and my channel is Tibbs Hype, it's the Knicks I care about. Long-term sustainable winner for the organization of the New York Knicks, right? So that's what we care about. What I'm excited about is we have a front office that up to this point has proven itself to be very competent. What they just did is very risky, okay? Because you just had success. You had a progression of success from Tibbs' first year in New York and 41 wins to this last year and 51 wins in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's the type of progression you want over 5 years. And I believe if given the chance with this same team next season, he would have done better. But that's irrelevant right now. We're going to talk about all of the key players that are going to be on the Knicks going into next season. Today we're talking about the head of the snake, though, Jalen Brunson. So how he is used, how efficiently he is utilized is going to help with respect to wins. What that means is you must develop strategies where and this has got to start with him himself. He's got to decide he's not going to try to carry the team on his back. Okay? He's got enough talent around him that he doesn't have to try to do that. Some players feel compelled to do that because either the talent around them is not really good enough to compete for a title, or they feel it's not good enough to compete for a title. I don't think either of those are true with the Knicks and Jalen Brunson. The team is good enough to compete for a title. If you're in the conference finals, you're good enough to compete for a title because you're one of the final 4 of the 30-something teams in the league. Okay, so the Knicks are proven now they're long-term sustainable winners. They're proven they're good enough. They got enough talent to compete for a title. Jalen Brunson has repeatedly expressed his support for his teammates and understanding what his teammates bring to the table. Okay, with that all being the case, he's got to learn to trust his teammates. Okay, he got to learn to let the game come to him. And I'm not trying to coach Jalen Brunson, an all NBA, all-star player, a great player, okay? Footwork on legendary status in my view. But in order for the Knicks to win, he's got to be more efficient, which means he's got to let that game come to him a little bit, okay? He's got a lot of help. Karl Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, Mitchell Robbins, the whole nine. Mikal Bridges, of course, Gato. He got dudes, he got a whole bunch of help. He don't have to take it all on himself. And I think that's more of a mental than anything. When the Knicks talk about doing work this summer, with not all the players, we're not talking about physical work. Like Jalen Brunson's not going to increase his vertical this summer. What he can do, though, is increase his knowledge of what he needs to do to become more efficient. His footwork is what it is. He can improve it slightly, but it's not going to be such that it's going to make him several levels higher than he is now. At this stage, when a guy like him, Jalen Brunson is 28, 29, something like that. So Jalen, he's 28. He'll be 29 at the end of August. When you're at that stage, your improvement is incremental. It's not like huge. When you're a younger player, when you're 18, 17, going into 20, you can make huge leaps just because your physical development is still ongoing, and you can make huge leaps in your game. When you get to be in your prime, though, it's incremental. For example, Michael Jordan, when he came into the league, he was overwhelming the league with his superior athleticism. His athletic ability was unmatched at that time. He could not be stopped with the basketball one-on-one. And he had more than 40 vertical, like a 48-inch vertical leap. It was ridiculous. And he's being 6'5", 6'6", was ridiculous, okay? And of course, there was this skill level that makes him one of the greatest players to ever play in the NBA. But once he got past 28, 27, what you saw from Michael Jordan was more of a post game. He was using post moves that he never used when he was younger. He was using more post moves and becoming more efficient with his game. He had worked on that, and then Kobe really copied Michael. In that same vein, Kobe started using more post moves. When Kobe first came in the NBA, he was using superior athleticism to overwhelm the opponent in the NBA. And, sometimes it made him a ball hog. But when he got older, he was using off-ball movement and post moves to overwhelm his opponent. And he became elite at it, just like Michael Jordan, okay? Because he copied Jordan a lot. Smart move. So my point in bringing that up is you have to, older guys, and I'm not calling James Brunson old, but I'm saying once you're in your prime and you're not going to physically get any stronger, higher, springier, it's only going to go down. You want to become smarter and more efficient. At this stage, Brunson's in his prime. To become more efficient is not only going to help him, but it's going to help the Knicks win. Because if offensively, Brunson gets a one-on-one opportunity with anybody, like the ball's moving and all of a sudden you have a mismatch. And look, pretty much, with the exception of guys like Usar Thompson or Dyson Daniels or maybe Neesmith, just some guys, not everybody. But you get Jalen Brunson one-on-one with a guy for 5 seconds, he's going to beat him, okay? He's going to beat him, or he's going to get fouled. And don't let him get mismatched on the big man, because he can destroy any big man that's trying to guard him. So that's the efficient. That's what you want, but you don't want him to work hard. The more efficiently you can work to get him in that position, the better, which means he's not dribbling out the clock. He's not holding the ball. He's not trying to fight pressure by himself when he's got teammates. Over the course of the season, when they do this, not only will it preserve him, but it will make them sharper. So when it comes to playoff half-court basketball, they will be efficient at beating teams using the talents of the whole team and not focusing on just Jalen Brunson trying to carry them. Closing time, And this is why, one of the reasons why Brunson is elite in terms of course, he was officially the NBA Clutch Player of the Year, which means in the last 5 minutes of a game, he could take over. One of the reasons that is because most players are tired. Obviously, you're going to be more tired in minute 40 than you were in minute 1 of an 82 game season and in the grinding of the playoffs, right? But that's when he, who is not, his game is not based on athleticism, but technique and footwork, which doesn't slow down. That's when he becomes more dangerous, okay? So many of us have seen the video of his father training him. He's running full court with the ball. He's doing moves and shooting. And he asked his father, how many? And he said, until I tell you. Because Jalen Brunson is trained to come to play all the way to the 48th minute, which he can do. But he must be more efficient with it. So the new coach I'm going to guarantee you right now, no matter who it is, if it's Johnny Bryant, Taylor Jenkins, if it's Jason Kidd or Ime Udoka, I can guarantee you Brunson's minutes are going to go down. The offense is going to become more spacing, and they're going to use him more efficiently. That alone is going to help the Knicks. That alone. And we know defense wins championships. And we know you got to get stops. That's a whole nother story. On the defensive end of the floor, the Knicks have got to be able to show, double, and get out. The problem is, and I don't think I'm telling y'all anything that y'all don't already know from watching the Knicks, the biggest weakness on the defensive end is Karl-Anthony Towns. They attack Brunson, but they do it through Towns with pick and rolls. And a big man that's rolling against Towns will get a lot of dunks because he's very slow to react. And I don't think it's laziness. I think that some players just don't adjust defensively, some don't adjust offensively to the speed of the game. Julius Randle used to be able to get flustered when sudden double teams came at him because he wasn't ready for it, and he would freeze up a little bit and automatically do the spin that we all know he loved to do, and they'd be waiting for him. Defensively, Towns freezes up because there's a lot of movement in the NBA offensively, and it's really fast. When you ever watch an NBA game, you can see it. They're moving really fast. You're talking about big, strong, quick, athletic human beings that are at the highest level of that particular game, and it's not easy. So that regard, in order to offset that, the Knicks, which they did this year, not consistently, but they have to utilize Towns on the offensive end and make the defense work. If they could do that, then that will help him defensively. Okay. And then, of course, you're going to have Mitchell Robinson. I don't know if Mitchell Robinson is going to start. I would prefer him coming off the bench and playing the 25 minutes. But if he starts, he starts. But yeah, I would prefer him, coming off the bench in Mobb Deep with Deuce and Hart. Many of you have mentioned Deuce starting. I don't mind that either. The thing is that I can understand why Tibbs didn't do it, because Tibbs' focus was rebounding and defense. With Deuce, you're going to get the defense, especially in the perimeter. You're not going to get the rebounding, which is what Tibbs is on his agenda. That was high on his list. Now, that may not necessarily be high on the next coach's list, but I want to tell you what, it may not be rebounding in general, but it's going to definitely be offensive rebounding. So with respect to that, Deuce starting might not be a bad idea, but, we'll let the new coach decide that. And that's the thing. We don't tell the new coach what he needs to do. It's going to be his team, and he needs to do what he thinks is best to win, whatever that is, starting Deuce, sitting Deuce, or whoever. But, this is New York. People are not going to be patient. They're not going to give the guy a chance to develop his style. And there's going to be a lot of chatter always, especially if the Knicks go through a 2 or 3 game losing streak. That's when you'll be hearing people wanting to fire the guy they just hired. It's ridiculous, but it is what it is. So myself, I'm already prepared for it because it happens every single year. It's happened every single year that I've been watching the Knicks, even before, way before Tom Thibodeau. So that's no surprise. There's always going to be a bunch of knuckleheads that do that. But overall, I like the Knicks style in terms of ignoring the howls from media and fan base. They keep everything in-house. They keep it all close to the vest. And if there's an issue, they handle it inside. They don't let it leak out outside, okay? So That's beautiful because that's different. The media wants to create a circus for any team. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it is. They want to create a circus. And especially this is true in New York because they can make all kind of headlines, get all kind of clicks, have all kind of reactions, and make a lot of money by creating drama. The Knicks style with the Don, leading with the Don in the inner sanctum of his crew in the front office, they don't let them get that opportunity. The players train, they answer short, distinct answers. They don't put anything out there that can create fodder, even though it still gets created out of the imaginations of a lot of media. And then fans eat it up like catnip, and then they keep repeating it like gossiping women at a fence next door. You know, that's how they do it. Or in a hairdresser. That's how they do it. But anyway, Jalen Brunson, if he's to be utilized in an efficient manner, as I said, utilizing his teammates, not trying to carry the team on his back, choosing his spots, taking over in the last 5 minutes, which is his specialty, the Knicks can win a lot of basketball games this year. Matter of fact, I don't think they need to make any trades unless a player wants to be traded. Like I said, I could see Precious Achua maybe wanting to go to another team, number one, to get more money, and number two, to get more playing time, a rotation spot. But, you know, let's put it this way. We don't know who the new coach is going to be. And we don't know how that coach might feel about a guy like Precious. He might decide, I think Precious Achua is, you know, back in the day, y'all remember Anthony Mason. Anthony Mason was in the, then, you know, the equivalent of the G League at that time. And Don Nelson came to coach the Knicks. And when Don Nelson came, for some reason, he thought that Mace was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And he really started Mace at center. And he had Mace, you know, doing a lot of things that, you know, he was the point center, basically, on the Knicks under Don Nelson. And he became an all-star, okay? His game expanded because he thought, unlike like maybe Pat Riley or anybody before him, that Mace was more valuable than people thought. Well, so we don't know how the new coach is going to feel about the players. We don't know. We're going to find out. Like, I think the starting four. The only thing I don't know about is who's going to be the fifth starter. Is it going to be Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, or Deuce McBride, or somebody else? I don't know. But that coach will decide. I can guarantee you Brunson, McCall, OG, and Cat are four to start. 100%. There's no doubt about that. They're going to be 4-year starters. After that, we'll have to see how the new coach feels about the players. Okay. We obviously know Tibbs did not fully trust Precious because Precious minutes was spotty. And I've always felt, and I've expressed this before, that if Precious is given a consistent allotment of minutes that are at least 15 to 20, he's a double-double machine waiting to happen. Okay, if he's given that confidence from his coach and given that consistent minutes, he's a double-double machine. I really feel that way. And I've been calling him Oakley 2.0, and I ain't changed on that. I just need to see what this new coach feels about him and about their team in general. Then, of course, there's coaches that do the opposite and mess up. For example, we all remember Thibodeau coming in his first introductory press conference and looking at Emmanuel Mudiay talking about, we're going to get you right, kid. And Mudiay became what many call the tank commander. Okay? So, you know, they can make mistakes too. So let's see how the new coach is. But the candidates that we're really talking about, which the Knicks and Bagley has mentioned, your Taylor Jenkins, your Johnny Bryants, your Jason Kidds, and your Ime Udokas, all of those guys know what the hell they doing. Okay? All those guys know what the hell they doing. And they all have a command of their team. People were asking me about Sam Cassell. Cassell's obviously basketball mind that's had 2 championships, had a great career, and probably a great assistant coach. But he don't have the command. He doesn't. In New York, you got to be able to stand with a stiff back, and you got to have a thick skin, and you got to be tough. I don't see that with him. That's why I don't think the Knicks are interested in him. And that's why he's not getting a call. Okay, because you got to have that. You can, your Kenny, for example, your Kenny Smith, who always is interested in coaching the Knicks but never gets picked. He's a TV personality. That ain't a head coach in the league. You can't win the league being a TV personality. It's not a vote. You got to get the wins. Okay, you need somebody tough. Udoka, tough. Kid, he been here. He know what he doing. Taylor Jenkins, boy, look like a roughneck out the cave somewhere. Tough. Okay, I have no problem. And Johnny Bryant, I don't know how tough he is, but I think y'all can agree with me if I say what you see with Johnny Bryant is positivity and confidence, extreme confidence. And that's what I could see him bringing if he was the coach. He would be confident. He would instill that in his players. And what I also like about Brian, and again, he's not my favorite, but I'm just bringing out the positives. What I also like about him is he's the type of coach, there's certain coaches that take what's given them and get the most out of what's given them. In other words, if a guy is really good, like Mitchell Robinson, say, in offensive glass, he will put Mitchell Robinson in position to be successful on the offensive glass. If a guy is really good, let's say at rebounding, like Precious, or he can D up like Deuce, he will utilize that talent and get the most out of it with the guy doing what he's doing best. That's the type of coach I think Bryant would be, and that's why he could also come to New York. He'll be extremely confident. He would not let the media discourage him. He would not create any drama. He's going to be very confident. He's going to put a high level of trust in his players, and the players love that. That's what's called player coach, okay? So we'll see how this works out. But I don't think the Knicks can really go wrong with the guys we're hearing about. Like I said, Jenkins, Bryant, Kidd, or Udoka. They can't go wrong with none of these guys. They can't. So one of them going to get picked. We'll see probably, like I said, before July 4th, we'll know who they're picking. I'd like to think they would have hired a guy by the time the draft comes. Not that the draft is anything to the Knicks this year. They're not really looking at anything in the draft. You're going to see the normal with the Knicks, with the Don. Undrafted free agent signings that somebody's going to try to scrape and scrap and make the team. Okay, you might get a pick, and they might buy a pick. They got a 55, but they might buy a pick in the second round. There's some really good prospects usually. The game is such at a parity level right now that, you could get good talent in the second round. The Knicks have shown that. I mean, Brunson was second round. Mitchell Robinson was second round. Deuce McBride was second round. You could get talent in the second round. Okay, you could get that in the second round. So we'll see how this plays out. But I'm very confident in the Don and his front office crew, his scouting crew, the Brock Allers with the Cap crew. I'm very confident they know what they're doing, and they're going to make some right decisions here. This is going to be a big move, but it could springboard the Knicks forward. But we'll see as the decisions are made. Anyway, y'all please be safe out here. Enjoy your weekend. Get some good rest and time with your fam and enjoy it. Shalom.